Today is day 2 at the TRRC Commission, and Chongan, the witness who started day 1, is also the witness who is starting day 2 to continue his marathon testimony. As we had noted earlier, Chongan was recognized by the Commission to be the first witness for the bravery he had displayed when he attempted to stop the July 22nd coup of 1994. For this reason, Chongan has been made a darling of freedom and democracy. Here again is former DIG Operations Ebrima Chongan.
Mr. Ebrima Chongan, thank you very much, Emma, for setting the scene for us. Lead Counsel, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chongan, I hope you have rested well. Welcome back to this hearing. Mr. Chongan, yesterday you talked about the events that happened prior to July 22nd, 1994. And I want to look at 4 different areas, just to prepare your mind for that. I want to talk about what happened at the airport. I want to talk about what happened to certain officials in the army after your incarceration. I want to talk about the whereabouts of the IGP and President Jara soon after the coup was announced. I also want to talk about the U.S. Gambia military drill that was supposed to occur on the day of the coup itself. And the 5th point would be the relationship between the prisoners and some of the prison officers as at the time you were in detention. Would you be prepared to discuss those?
Yes, Counsel.
The first point is to do with the events at the airport. Just to recap, yesterday in your testimony, you indicated that as AIG, that is Assistant Inspector General of Police for Operations, it was your responsibility to supervise the activities of the police at the reception of the President when he arrived from England. That's right.
No, let me clarify. The President has his presidential guard who were not under me. And the tactical support group and the general duty, obviously, and the area is under my command for policing issues. So we just need to clarify that. But certainly, I should be there. I should be at the airport.
And your presence there was not just ceremonial. It was as part of your responsibilities as AIG for operations. Is that right?
Yes.
You you indicated to us that it was unusual that you were asked not to attend on that particular day.
Yes.
You also indicated that it was unusual that the soldiers who were present were asked to show that their weapons did not contain live ammunition.
Yes.
Apart from those 2 unusual events, do you recall any other unusual activity or unusual event that occurred on that particular day?
Yes, I mean, I have to also bearing in mind that I was not present, but I subsequently knew what happened, because everybody knew about it, that the Vice President at the time was not there. when the president arrived. And also, it was unusual for, as you rightly articulated, for the military to be humiliated there, for them to show their weapons that they didn't have any weapon. And also, everybody knew there was a rumor of coup. Why, after the guard of honor, why did they just allow the suspected officers just to go and just fall out? And then they come back the following morning to start this mutiny, which will eventually lead to a coup.
Yeah, you talked about the vice president not having been present at the event. Was his presence required?
Well, if the president traveled, the vice president is de facto acting as a president. And when the president comes, the vice president should be there.
At this point, it has to be noted that the former president himself confirmed this in his book, that it was quite surprising that his own vice president was not present at the airport to receive him. He found it to be very, very surprising. Let's continue with the witness.
Indicated that after you returned from the brief skirmish you had with the coupists, you managed to find your way through Bond Road back to police headquarters. And I asked you the question whether you saw the IGP when you arrived at the police headquarters, and your answer was no. Is that right?
Yes, that was correct.
Did you eventually find out where he went?
Yes. At the time, I didn't know until I went to Tobacco Road where I was staying. It was later I realized that the government, the president and the IG and some senior officials have boarded the Nigerian vessel, County Lamore. If you recall, in my testimony, I did indicated that there was supposed to be a joint exercise between the Americans and the Gambian Armed Forces when the day before Colonel Salute came to my office and Captain Samsudeen Sarr at the time to inform me about the exercise so that we can warn our units at Denton Bridge. So it was in the weekend that I realized that the officials have gone, including the IG. They bought the ship and left.
May I draw your attention to paragraphs 29 and 30 of your statement? Could you read out those two paragraphs, and then I would ask follow-on questions?
Paragraph 29, I wrote, I heard that President Jawara knew nothing about the precarious security situation that was in the country on the day of his return from London, Thursday evening.
Could you kindly slow down as you read out the paragraph, please? Thank you.
Okay. On Friday morning, he went to his office looking forward to business as usual. Then some senior officials, the NSS National Security Service Director and Vice President Sehu Savali of his government came to advise him to leave for the U.S. naval ship. When he asked for explanation, the collective response was, don't put your family at risk. After they explored the implications of the military insurgency that was underway, he considered to leave for the naval ship with the understanding that if the rebel soldiers overrun all the security forces, he will be able to make the necessary contacts for the visiting U.S. Navy to intervene and cross the mutiny. But But nothing of that sort would happen. In fact, I understand that after the president, his family, and a handful of senior officials, including the Inspector General of Police, were on board, the then U.S. Ambassador to the Gambia, Mr. Andrew Winter, informed him that Washington had to approve any intervention by the American Navy. The rebel soldiers had already taken over the State House, and by 6 p.m. they announced the coup on Radio Gambia. Officials in Washington wouldn't authorize the Navy to intervene in what they considered a domestic matter. The word from Washington became the death knell for President Jawara's 3 decades-long presidency. The president was left with negotiating with the coup leaders for his return, but the effort became futile. On Sunday, the naval ship left the Gambian waters for the Senegalese capital, Dakar, and the Senegalese authorities offered President Jawara asylum. The Navy ship proceeded to their next port of call.
As far as you know, is this a true and correct recollection of what actually happened on that day?
Yes, this was a true collection. The president left with some senior officials, including the IG. They left on the naval ship, and there was an attempt for the president to talk with the juntas, and I think he spoke to one of them.
You were certainly not present when these events happened. Can you tell us how you got to know about this?
I got to know about this from Captain Gassama, who was the ADC of President Jawara. And Captain Gassama was living in exile with me in the United Kingdom.
You told us that when you arrived at police headquarters, your boss, who had ordered you to go to the bridge and fight, was not present. How did you feel when you eventually learned that he went on board the vessel with Jawara offshore out of the jurisdiction?
Well, I was not pleased. I was very shocked. But I mean, the reasons you will have to ask him. But for me personally, I felt bad.
I wouldn't ask you why you felt bad. I would move on to the next point. On the day of the coup, there was to be a military drill between the Gambia Armed Forces and the U.S. Marines. That's what you testified to earlier. Is that right?
Correct.
Could you explain what was the nature of this exercise?
Yes, as I explained before, during that time, every couple of years, the Americans do what they call a West African training tour, where they will exercise with the various navies, Senegalese Navy, Gambian Navy, all the countries are going in the coast. In fact, a couple of years before 1994, there was an exercise around the Mandinari area, and I was an umpire with Captain Omar Faye. In fact, that time I think Jamme was a sergeant in the military police, and he was there. And when I say Jamme, I mean Jamme. So, but this time, what was different is that the exercise was going to be in an urban setting, because I think the American brought in some amphibious landing vehicles. So that was the major difference, because this time it was in an urban setting, and with all the implications it will have.
What are the implications that you have in mind?
Well, that was the reason that Colonel Salit came to my office to tell us, because, you know, in the urban setting, you know, the vehicle, a lot of civilians around, etc. Yes, and I think now there was a lot of rumors after the coup, whether the Americans were involved or they are not involved, or they should have stopped it, etc. My view is that it's a coincidence, but you know, it's for historians to research and judge. I can only say what I know.
Thank you, Mr. Chongan, for that clarification. That was going to be my next question. You preempted it well and answered it. So thank you very much for that. We have addressed 3 of the main points for clarification. In your testimony yesterday, you talked about the head of the army, Mr. Babukar Jata, and Mr. Dennis Coker, who was, I think, major at the time, visited at the prison. Do you know whether Dennis Coker is still in the army?
No, Dennis Coker is not in the army. Dennis Coker would later, I think the last thing he couldn't handle was after the death of Haidara, which we will come in prison, when he went and saw the body. So Dennis would eventually leave the army and go to America. And I found that a very courageous thing, a very conscientious officer, because he was here, number 2 in the army, with all the privileges, and he left that. I think that was a very honorable act.
What was the honorable act you're talking about is that he left the army. Do we know why he left?
Yeah, he left the army because he couldn't take it anymore. He has seen how senior officers have been detained, humiliated, and all this detention, etc. He could have played along like the majority of the officers and every plea as if you've seen or you've not had nothing. So that is why in my book, he's a very honorable officer. That's what an officer should do, not to condone or join illegality.
How do you know that he left because of this particular reason?
Yes, I mean, remember, we all are in exile, and we have spoken on several occasions, and he has explained he couldn't take it anymore.
So you mean that Mr. Coker himself told you that this was his reason for leaving the army?
Yes, that's what I just said.
Now let's talk about life in the prisons. You have mentioned a number of names of officers at the prison, and you mentioned one Thomas Jaju. You have mentioned Ismaila Sanyang. You have mentioned Buba Jata, alias GV Paint, Malang Sidibe, Per Marong, Antu Sedi, and David Colley. Do you remember mentioning these individuals?
Yes, correct.
How come you're still able to remember the names of these individuals? Is there any particular reason?
Well, I mean, this is a fundamental time, an impact on my life. And I knew some of the officers like Mr. Marong and Antu Sedi. Antu Sedi, we are all of the same generation, and we used to meet every Friday. They come to my house, and we were basically friends. But for Thomas Jaju and David Colley, particularly Thomas Jaju, he made us suffer. He dehumanized us and refused us sour, like what I testified yesterday. So, and also it was a bad and a very wicked coincidence, because they all, him and I think David Colley, they all came from Kanilai. So they saw this as their government. So you can see how unlucky we were. But as I mentioned yesterday, they were also very good officers who were humane. They couldn't do anything because they didn't detain us, but they were humane, like Sidibe I mentioned, Malang Sidibe. And there was another guy called Minteba, but I can't remember his name. He was also a very, very, very sympathetic officer. And yes, David Colley also was not very helpful, but he was a little bit higher up because we had direct contact with Thomas, where for months when we were isolated after September 6. Nobody comes to see us except him. For Buba Jatta, as I said, he's a very human guy. He was the prison medic who used to come with the ink. You know, I don't know whether it has already. All of us, when we grow in the Gambia, if you have a wound, they used to put that ink in the cotton and put it in the in your wound, and this is called GB pen, gentle something, the correct name. For Ismaila Sanyang, we grew up in Latrikunda, so probably that's why he was a little bit more sympathetic. In fact, I remember once in the prison where Thomas Jatta said in Mandinka, I don't know whether I will know it properly, Balaya Lofo, Balahama, Balaya Longo Noma or something, meaning, you know, you have sympathy to somebody you know. You know, so you can see the situation. So that is what happened.
Is it your suggestion, therefore, that Mr. Thomas Jaju contributed to the inhumane treatment of the prisoners at Mile 2 prison, including yourself at the time?
Yes, but I can talk with absolute certainty for myself and Captain Charm. Nobody would deny somebody to have a shower for 1 month, especially somebody who has gone through a mock execution, and then afterwards once a week before it went on a daily basis. Nobody. That is not in the rules of the prisons. I'm very aware of the rules because I was a police officer and we were not convicted prisoners. So, you know, we should have been giving our clothes. I should have been giving my clothes, and we were detainees. We are entitled for our families to send us provisions so that we can have it. So keeping the provisions, etc., that is inhumane and unjust.
Talking about provisions that family members would or would not bring to you, could you explain what happened on that issue with regards to you, provisions that may have been sent to you by your family members?
Yes, I mean, when we were isolated, my wife still continued to bring provisions, you know, coffee, biscuits, sardines, and corned beef. That's why I still hate sardines and corned beef. I don't even want to see it, because that's the only better food you can eat. So most of those things, when we were detained and when we were transferred to security wing number 1, it's not filtering through to us. It was only subsequently when I came to going to court and I spoke to my wife, and he said he was constantly coming. I said, oh, I didn't see it that time. But after, when we came back to security wing number 4, the provisions were coming normally.
Did you ask anybody what happened to the provisions that were being sent to you in prison while you were in security wing number 1?
No, we pleaded. I did mention yesterday when I think it was Ismaila Sanyang Stone, when a pot of coffee slipped through. And now we beg to have hot water, so that now we started having hot water every morning. You know, nobody gives you any answer. And also, you have to understand, in that context, it's very difficult. You are powerless. You are a prisoner. You are at the mercy of the prison guards.
Just trying to understand the system that operates at the prison. Could you explain the problems surrounding provisions or monies sent to the prison for the benefit of prisoners? This is important because at some stage this commission may have to look into institutional reforms, and we cannot do that if we do not understand the problems. So I want you to explain your understanding of what happens in the prisons regarding provisions or monies sent to detainees by members of their families.
Well, I mean, it's a very difficult thing, and also you have to look at it in the context. I don't know now, but before, prison wardens were not properly paid. And to be fair, this is just not a Gambian problem. This is prisons all over the place. If you don't pay the prisoners, there will be smuggling. I think that's what you want me to illustrate. And also, I'm not sure whether detainees are allowed to get money. But we had some good prison wardens who would help us so that you can have food or special food. And I have to be brutally honest, we had to smuggle food. I mean, under normal circumstances, they should have allowed our families to cook for us. But I mean, if you don't get money you won't get food that comes from, and it's not even every day. That's maybe every couple of weeks you will be lucky. So there were even other issues, because when I was in the prison, I was shocked to even know that in the prison they are selling drugs, cannabis. Some prisoners are lot. So that is why institutional reforms are very important, so that prison wardens are properly paid, properly trained. So there were challenges. And wherever you go, there were some people who were very wicked, and some people who were humane, and some people who basically were opportunists. They just saw it as an opportunity to make money out of the detainees.
In a sense, you are telling us that during your time at Mile 2, there was a lot of corruption.
Yes, correct.
Corruption among prison officers.
Well, yeah, and also, I mean, the detainees are not that quite innocent also, because they are giving money, so it's a difficult thing.
Okay, thank you for those clarifications. We now move back to the criminal charges that were leveled against you. And in your testimony, we discussed up to the point you were taken at Kanifing Magistrates Court. I know, Mr. Chongan, that also in your testimony, you had discussed the fact that there was a consolidation of 2 charges against you, and the case was ultimately transferred to Mr. Bori Toure. But that part of the testimony seemed to have been rushed. So I want us to take it a little more sequentially and step by step. We also note that your statement really constitutes what I may describe as a prison diary. Is that correct?
Correct.
So explain a little bit about the diary. Why would you call it a diary?
I call it a diary because I was recording things contemporaneously, as I indicated before, and submitted the manual written notes, sending out. That is why I'm able to capture date, time, and people.
Significant is the issue of the dates. So I would want us to go through the dates you have recorded, and then you would discuss with us the events that you had recorded in your diary about those particular dates. You understand me? Let's start with paragraph 140 of the statement. That is 27 March 1995. This would have been after 9 months of detention. Could you explain what happened?
Yes. On this day, we appeared in Magistrate Cris Davis's courtroom, and the courtroom was full to capacity, and this was and our lawyers were there. So our lawyers were applying for bail, and my lawyer was lawyer Usman Silla, and we all he was very optimistic. He thought that the magistrate will grant bail, even though I wasn't optimistic. So, do you want me to read 141?
What does 141 entail? But perhaps maybe first of all answer this question. Was bail granted on that particular day, the 27th March?
No, bail was not granted. That was the application, and the application was on that day, on the 27th March. So it will on 10 April, that where the magistrate will make a decision.
And can you tell us what happened on 10 April?
Yeah, on 10 April, as I said, as Magistrate Onya rejected the bail application based on certain provisions laid down in the military decrees number 2, 3, and 26 of the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council. In delivering his ruling, the magistrate reiterated that he wouldn't want to portray his court as an elephant in clay feet.
You did testify about this earlier, and you made that same exact quote.
Yeah.
But how did you view that decision?
I view it that the magistrate was giving the junta a way out. I think he should have granted bail so that we know what happens, whether they will release us or they don't release us. And I think this is very fundamental and important for the independence of the judiciary, and for the judiciary to take responsibility, because this is the telltale signs at the beginning where we would go to a stage where there is total abdication of responsibility.
Following this decision by the magistrate, did your lawyers take any other action regarding your bail application?
Yes, they went to the higher courts and it went up to the highest court in this land, and the highest court acknowledged that there are no human rights laws in the Gambia. And that was reported in the papers everywhere. Amnesty International quoted it in the following year's annual report.
After these hearings, according to your earlier testimony, you appeared before the review panel. Could you remind us what happened at this review panel?
Yes, we appeared at the review panel where the chair, the Nigerian judge, Justice Obayan was the chair, and he was assisted by one Miss Jatuka, who was a state counsel at the time from the Attorney General Chambers, and the other panel members were ASP Jatabalde, and then there was Counsel Mustafa Marong, and also there was Imam Momodu Drame of Latrikunda. And as I indicated yesterday, they said they cannot do nothing. The only thing they can do is to recommend, but they just ask you how many wives you have, how many kids you have, how many number of years service. For me, I think it was just a futile exercise, and they were trying to copy what happened in '81 when there was a review panel to look at the various detainees who were detained. So this was just a charade.
Did they, at the panel, tell you the reasons for your detention?
No. They said they couldn't do anything.
Did they ask any questions that pertained to your activities as members of the security forces?
No, they didn't ask that.
Did they put anything on the table suggesting that you were accused of having committed any crimes or violation of any laws?
No, they didn't say that. I mean, the Nigerian judge, Justice Obayan, was a senior judge, so he knew that we have not committed crime. It's the other people who committed treason, not us. So nobody could have charged us for any security reason. In fact, there was an interview with Jammeh in the early days of the coup with BBC, where he said, oh, the detainees committed treason. And I think it was Elizabeth Ohini who told him, how can they commit treason when they were defending the government of the day?
How did Jammeh respond to that?
Well, that's history. What else can he say?
Did he say anything at all?
I didn't remember. I didn't remember, yeah.
Okay, interesting. The next important date you mentioned in your diary was the 9th of May, 1995. This would have been after 10 months in detention. What happened?
Sorry, I said this 9 May 1995 was the eve of Tabaski, and this this Muslim feast, and always it was a tradition. If it's Eid al-Adha or if it's Christmas or in this feast, during the Fourth Republic, former President Jawara would release prisoners. So we thought that maybe there will be some prisoners released. And on this day, this was the day that Thomas Jaju came and took Captain Samsudeen Sarr, Chief Superintendent Turo Jaune, and Captain Durcham to the prison headquarters. And they were the lucky ones that day, and they were released that day.
How did you feel when you learned that at least 3 of your colleagues had been released?
Well, we were very happy for them. Obviously, we felt very disappointed. But for me, I always knew I will be the last person to come out, because for 2 reasons. I was one of the most senior people after Press Jagne. I was the most senior serviceman at the time. So I know I would be among the last batch. And secondly, with my skirmishes with the soldiers, I mean, I know they had a beef with me. So for me, deep down, I just said, I leave it to Allah. But I knew I would not go home early.
Was there anything else about you, your personality, perhaps, that militated against your early release?
Well, everybody had personality. I know what you are alluding to. I was young, I had a high position, but I am proud. Nobody can accuse me of corruption.
Yes, please. Second.
Mr. Chongan, I recall yesterday you mentioned moments when...
Can you announce your name, please, for the transcribers? They had problems with that today.
Your name?
Commissioner Kanteh. Chongan, I recall yesterday you mentioned that there were a number of moments when you were training Yaya, and even after his training, when he was working on the U, there were a number of moments when you had confrontations and sour relations. Don't you think that also may have contributed to, you confirming that you will be one of the last to go out?
Well, I mean, I don't know your explanation, how you articulated it. I did not have confrontation with him. I was his senior. And if he doesn't do something right, I have never done anything unjust or unfair to him.
No, certainly I know you were only performing your duty, but that may not go down well with him. And with this opportunity, I wonder if you would not come last.
I think the main purpose I came last, because Jammeh was, to be frank, he was jealous and envious because he lived next door to me. I had a car, a beautiful car, a Pajero in those days. So obviously that is why he had the obsession of buying so many cars.
You may continue, Counsel.
Mr. Chongan, you had a nickname in the forces while you were a young soldier. What was it?
Well, you said it's a nickname. Yeah. I was called Dinding Manso or Bambaba. So, but I mean, well, and I don't like that name. I'm not a Dinding anymore. That's why maybe Jammeh call himself Babili Mansa.
What does Dinding Manso mean?
Well, that's a Mandinka word for a young king or ruler, whatever. I'm sure the chairman knows it better than me.
Do you act like one in your younger days?
I cannot act like one. I was a serviceman subjected to military rules and regulations. The problem was military was young in the Gambia, and people did not understand the concept and the psyche of young officers. I mean, as young officers, as all of us, we had some moments of youthful exuberance. That's quite normal.
I would ask you to elaborate on that.
Council, I'm not going to elaborate on that. I am leaving that to rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chongan. May we proceed to events of 1995, June 1995 to be precise. Yes. Could you talk about the events you recorded in your diary about 2nd June 1995?
2nd June 1995 would become a very sad day, but we woke up in the morning as usual. Now, remember, we are almost a year now in prison, so we are used to the routine. When you wake up in the morning, you know, try to get some hot water and do the normal admin stuff. Then it was very sad. And obviously, in the prison, they always lock us up from noon to 2 o'clock, so that in the morning when we come out, if there is no tension, they will leave us till 12, and then they will lock us up from noon to 2 o'clock, and then they open us up. But we were there in the afternoon, and so the cells were reopened after 2 o'clock. And then around 4:45 p.m., we had shouts and cries from security wing number 1. Then there was a prison officer I called Seni. I'm not sure whether it was Seni Daba or something, but he was called Seni. He was a prison guard, and he was running from security wing number 1, coming to us at security wing number 4 to report to Sergeant Jawando, who was a prison sergeant at that time, the chief commander of our area, and inform him of the death of Sadibu Haidara.
What happened after you had that information?
Well, we were sad, and then afterwards the prison authorities, I think it was Antu Seidi who came, and then afterwards Major Dennis Koka came, and then afterwards they took out the dead body, put it on a trolley. I still remember they covered it with a blue prison blanket, and they took the body away.
Prior to his death, did you have the chance to see him in the prison?
Yes, I mean, as I said, I know Haidara for a long time because he was in the Gendarmerie, and then we went to Turkey together. And I remember when he was in Turkey, he did have some medical problem until he was admitted at Haydarpasa Military Hospital in Istanbul. And I remember we visited him, myself, Sirif Mbai, and others. We were there doing our course. And also, after the torture, he had some medical issues. I remember they used to take him to the...
Let's clear that issue. Which torture are you referring to?
Well, the torture, I said, when they were tortured, shortly after they were brought in under detention. I did testify that yesterday.
Who? Who do you refer to as
we are talking about Saibu Haidara and Sabali, Sana Sabali at the time.
According to your testimony yesterday, they were tortured on 2 separate occasions. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
After the tortures, continue your testimony?
Yes, then afterwards, Sadibu Haidara was sick, but this is much later, and they used to take him to the prison headquarters for Dr. Gay, Dr. Aliu Gay. I'm not sure whether Aliu is the first name. Dr. Gay, the well-known Dr. Gay at RVH at the time, used to treat him. But the situation became so bad that on one occasion or so, Dr. Gay had to come right all the way to security number 1 to see him. And, you know, that time we are always sitting outside, and we saw he went. And at some point I did saw, it looked like his face was a little bit swollen shortly before he died.
Do you know whether he was taken to the hospital at all?
Well, I wouldn't know. Remember, we never go out of the prison. All you know, he said that they went to the prison headquarters. So I wouldn't know. I cannot. I can only say what I've seen.
While you were there, did anybody else die in the prison?
No, no, I couldn't remember. Well, there would be people might die in the main yard, but for us, the security detainees, I didn't remember anybody dying.
Let's now move on to events of 15 June in your statement. What happened on this day?
On this day, Major Malik Njai, who is alias Pacha, who was the army doctor, Captain Ebrima Kambi, Corporal Alagie Kanteh, and Captain Sana Sabali, they were summoned to the prison head office, and they were taken to the army headquarters, and they were informed that they would be court-martialed. Major Malik Njai was the most senior officer by rank in the military then, and he was in cell number 13, opposite my cell number 27. So he lamented that he couldn't understand what offense he may have committed. So he was, of course, right. And then obviously he was in a very distraught situation because not knowing what offense you've committed.
That's right. But before you continue your testimony on that, just allow me to take you back a little bit to the death of Haidara. We just need to establish whether you knew the cause of his death.
No, I wouldn't know the cause of his death. I'm not a doctor.
Did you hear anything having been said about the cause of his death?
Well, I wouldn't know. We were in prison. Obviously, there were rumors. People have different versions. Some people thought that he might have died as a result of the torture, or he might have natural conditions. But I wouldn't know. I'm in prison, and I'm not a doctor.
Did you hear the government announcement as to the cause of his death?
Counsel, remember, I was in prison. So I think those outside should be able to answer that.
The reason why I raise this is, okay, take a look at paragraph 45 of your statement. 162, yes. Take a look at paragraph 162.
Yes, I remember the Radio Gambia announced that Captain Sadibu Haidara died from chronic high blood pressure.
That is the point I wanted I wanted to establish.
Okay.
Okay. So now you were telling us about Kambi, Ebrima Kambi, Malik Njai Pacha, Major at the time, and Corporal Alagie Kanteh. Did you know Alagie Kanteh before?
Alagie Kanteh, no, I did not know him. I came to know him in prison because he is from the army.
And what did you learn about him while in prison?
Well, Alagie Kanteh was one of the victims of the November 11. He was shot and very sad, and he stayed in hospital for a while before he joined us at mile 2. And one of his legs is longer than the other. Very, very sad.
Do you by any chance know why one of his legs was longer than the other?
That was as a result of when they shot his leg. That's the cause of it.
So on this day, Alagie Kanteh, Corporal Ebrima Kambi, Captain, and Major Malik Njai were summoned to Army headquarters June 15th and informed that they would be court-martialed. That is what you said earlier, correct?
Yes, and Sana Sabali was there also.
Were they eventually court-martialed, as far as you know?
No. On 25th of June, somehow, Major Malik Njai and Kambi's case were suddenly dropped. But Sana Sabali, his case was dropped, and he was eventually court-martialed and sentenced to a number of years in prison.
Do you know what happened to Alagie Kanteh?
Alagie Kanteh continued to be in prison, even to be in prison. He was there for a long time. I think we even left him there.
You talked about your case, the appeal against your rejection of your bail application. You indicated that it went all the way to the Supreme Court, right? Now let's talk about the events of August 15th, 1995, 1 year, 1 month after your detention.
Yes, I am in August 15, the prosecution withdrew the case against Mr. Kebba Ceesay, who was the former Director General of NSS. For me, Alagie Jagne, the former IG, and I, we resume our trips going to the magistrate court. If you allow me, I can read it.
Which paragraph are you referring to?
167.
Yes, please go ahead and read it. This is an important paragraph.
Yes. So Alagie Jagne, the former Inspector General of Police, and I resume our trips to Banjul Magistrate Court to face charges in court alleged stealing. Lawyer Ousainou Darboe joined the defense team as the counsel for Alagie Jagne. The prosecution, eager to proceed with the case, called its first witness, Chongan Ceesay, police superintendent at the time. But in a sleight of hand, the prosecution skipped the 10 counts and began their examination with count number 11 against the former Inspector General of Police for abuse of office. ASP Lamin Jobate, the prosecutor, tried to tender certain documents as exhibits for the witness to vouch for in support of his evidence in chief. Each time, however, the defense counsel raised objection, which set off a round of lawyerly wrangling over the law. But even to the layperson, mind would find the legal argument too complex to follow. It was obvious that ASP Jobate was a novice in court compared to the experience and the renowned defense counsel, lawyer Usman Silla and lawyer Ousainou Darboe. They were just poking holes in every argument he made, and the magistrate ruled in favor of the defense each time. The prosecution applied for an adjournment to the appeal to appeal the decisions of the magistrate court to the Supreme Court, and the magistrate accepted the application, and the court was adjourned to 15 September.
Which magistrate was this at this time?
This time we are still with Magistrate Cris Davis.
And the case was adjourned to 15 September, you said, right?
Yes.
Did you appear before that court on the appointed date, 15 September?
Yeah, the prosecution did not show up in court to prosecute with its case against us. We appeared, but they did not show up. Our lawyers were quite upset about not being notified about the absence and call it a delaying tactic on the part of the prosecution because they have no merit in the case. They argued that the court should either side they should either side the prosecution for contempt or dismiss the case altogether. The magistrate ruled to adjourn the case instead.
And this was already 1 year and 3 months in detention?
Yes, correct.
Do you recall the events of 30 December 1995?
Yes, that was the conclusion of Sana Sabali's court-martial. The conclusion of Sana Sabali's court-martial was easily reached, and the former vice chairman of the junta was convicted on all charges and sentenced to 9 years in prison.
Did he remain in security wing number 1?
Yes, I think afterwards they took him to the main yard of the prisoners, but he didn't even stay there long. I think the tension was very high, and they brought him back to the security wing.
On that day, did you have any encounter with let me rephrase that. Do you know what happened to the colleagues of Sana Sabali with whom he used to come to the prison to conduct the tortures that he carried out on you and your colleagues?
I did mention that after they were arrested, some of their underlings were arrested. They were in prison. All the people charged with Sana Sabali, detained with Sana Sabali, it was only Sana Sabali who was charged and court-martialed.
Were they eventually convicted?
No, they were never charged.
Do you know for how long they were in detention?
Well, I don't know. At some point, some of them were released in batches. Yeah.
Do you know a person called Usman Baji?
I know Usman Baji. He was a gendarmerie officer trained in France and Morocco, and would later become an interior minister under the Jammeh government.
Do you know if anything happened to him at that time in 1995?
Yeah, he was also one of the detainees. They did detain him after they were arrested, Sabali and Haidara. Him, Valentine, and also Suso, and also Njai, the guys who were torturing me. They were also detained with Haidara among that group.
When you said Njai, who are you referring to?
Private Njai, who was the orderly to Sana Sabali, and Suso, what they believe was the orderly to Sadibu Haidara.
Do you recall what was his rank?
Suso was a gendarme, which is like equivalent of a private in the army.
In your description of the torture, you seem to have had an encounter with Private Njai. Do you recall that?
Yes, I did explain and testify. I told you after the mock execution, firing the shot, he was insulting me pushing me and then crawl up to the cell, yeah.
Was he pointing his gun at you by that gesture? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
When he was detained, did you have the occasion, the chance to see him in the prison?
Yes, I must have seen him. I must have seen him.
Did you by any chance have a conversation with him?
Yes, but I can't recall now unless you refer me to my statement, what I said.
No, that's not mentioned in the statement.
Yeah, because
So
I only saw him after he was released. And then he came to me and we spoke and he apologized and felt bad.
What did he apologize for?
Well, for what I've just described.
Which was?
Which, I mean, they came there, you know, insulting me, pointing gun after the mock execution. Yeah.
Yes, so now let's talk about January 22nd, 1996 in your diary.
Yeah, 22nd January 1996, you know, we marked the coming of the new year. We were still in the doldrums like the previous one. We had only two things to do: wait for the unknown and hope for a pleasant surprise. At that time, the holy month of Ramadan started, and we all began observing fasts with intensive prayers. We started reading the Holy Quran on a daily basis, and by now my reading and understanding of the Holy Quran was quite improved and quite impressed.
But for the year that had just ended, I mean, you had testified earlier that during certain important events like Tobaski, Christmas, and so on, the then President Jawara used to release prisoners. And you also testified that your first Tobaski in prison, Jame released some officers. Samsudeen Sarr, Nur Cham, and one other person, Turo Jaune. And on 30 December, or the end of the year 1995, what happened? Were any of your colleagues released?
Yes, I think that was the release of Dr. Njai and Mbalo Seidi Khan, who was a Zandam, and Cadet Superintendent Abu Jeng.
And these people, were they ever tried for any crimes?
No, they were not tried for any crime.
Do you know for how long Major Njai, Malik Njai, was in detention before his release?
Well, he was there a long time. At the starting with us, maybe around 27 or 28 July. He came just a few days after we came. So until that time, he was under detention.
And he was released at the end of December 1995?
30th December 1995.
And that would have been about 1 year, 5 months in detention?
Correct.
So, at this time, what happened to RSM Jeng? If you can remember.
I think if I remember correctly, RSM Jeng was at the hospital, and I think, let me just check. Okay, we also later, because RSM Jeng was now at RVH for quite a bit, and he was also among the people released. We later learned that he was released that day.
So you didn't see him again in the prison? He's not been brought back to the prison from hospital?
No.
So take us to events of February 1996. Independence Day?
February 18, 1996 was the 34th independent anniversary of the Gambia. And this day was the end of the holy month of Ramadan. This is on the 19th, was the holy day of Ramadan. So we have been hopeful that some of us would be released again, you know, with the same procedure, that there might be some releasing. But to our huge disappointment, these two consecutive opportunities also passed us by. And the then chairman decided to pardon only the convicted prisoners and and keeping us there, the remaining detainees.
And you were first charged before the magistrates' court. I think it was Canifing on 13 March 1995. 1 year thereafter, what happened?
March would be 1 year I was charged. The case was, the proceedings remained stuck and in its initial limbo. The prosecution had still not produced any witness to testify, and Magistrate Cris Davis still remained reluctant to either pressure the prosecution to produce witnesses to resume the case or dismiss it altogether. Since no rule of law prevailed in post-coup Gambia, we were kept in a judicial black hole.
Your description of events, according to your diary, contained in paragraph 175, is a bit interesting. Could you kindly read that out, please?
Yeah, I said after the prosecutor filed for an adjournment, the latest in an endless stream of applications at every session for more time to assemble his witnesses, I reached the limit of my patience. And I challenged Magistrate Onya for deferring too much for too long to the delaying tactics of the prosecution. The prosecution, I knew, I protested beyond all reasonable doubt that the charges were baseless and merited no hearing. We were held in an unlawful detention, condemned both nationally and internationally. I added that only appearance of the justification the junta was using to keep us in prison seemed to be this to drag on.
Do you read the rest verbatim, please?
Then Magistrate Onya just made a that just said Nelson Mandela stayed in prison for 27 years. Magistrate Onya said, and later became president of South Africa. And who knows whether one day one of you will become president of the Gambia. And you know, I thought that this was a very patronizing remark, and shared the contempt it stirred in the public gallery. Beyond that, I meant nothing to me, especially to my utmost immediate concern for a resolution to this legal purgatory. I was not a politician and had no ambition of becoming a president. In raising this concern to the bench in an open hearing, I was quite aware of the potential backlash from the junta. The zero tolerance of the ruling council for anything that had the appearance of criticism of its iron fist rule was there for all to see. And even though my protest was primarily directed at the magistrate for being invertebrate with the dilly-dallying prosecutor, I presumed that the junta would take it personally. But my outrage at the gross injustice and assault on our rights and dignities dwarfed all lingering misgiving that counsel caution and silence. However, I gave a second thought to the extent it might invite undue consequences to my fellow detainee defendants when I saw the next day's edition of The Point. At that time, the Point was a critical independent newspaper, ran a front story, page complete with my photo under the headline, Chongan demands to know why the prosecutions keep on absenting. And I think I had a newspaper of it.
At the end of the day, we would bring in all those newspapers and put them together at once. We don't want to go through the monotony of admitting documents at every point. So
I hasten to add, when I went back at mile 2, I told Sri Gomez, you better get another blanket because of my outburst at the magistrate court, because I knew that probably there might be a backlash.
Why would a blanket be needed?
Well, I was just telling him, preparing him psychologically to tell him you need another blanket on top of the plank because we'll be staying here long with what I have said.
Now, take us to 20 March 1996. What happened?
Yes, on 20 March 1996, the junta weighed in on my exchange with the magistrate. Fortunately for me and my fellow defendants, the junta had an entire different take on it, which I inexplicably overlooked. Magistrate Cris Davis was quietly transferred from Banjul to Kanifing Magistrate Court and thus removed from presiding over our trial. With the help of hindsight, it became obvious that my moment was negligible to the absolute rulers in light of the magistrate's lame comparison of my detention to the 27-year imprisonment of no less an icon than Nelson Mandela. The comparison ran on a parallel interpretation. Firstly, since Mandela was unjustly imprisoned, then I too was being unjustly detained, albeit on an infinite scale. Secondly, and I believe this was more biting and offensive to the junta, than the implication of apartheid, as in magistrate case, to the injustice. So I was being subject to draw comparable attributes of the unlawful order the junta too was wielding over us, the detainees in particular, and the nation at large.
So your belief is that your exchange with the magistrate who thought that your detention, compared to that of Mandela, who was incarcerated for 27 years, and he later on became president of South Africa, you think that statement wasn't received lightly by the junta, is that right?
Yes, that's what I believe, because he was immediately transferred.
Would you say that such was the modus operandi of the junta at the time? You say something they don't like, you are transferred, or some other action taken?
Well, that was the starting point of what has become very clear, which every Gambian knows what has happened with the judiciary afterwards.
Now, to which magistrate was the case transferred after Onya?
So our case was then transferred to another magistrate who also happened to be a Nigerian. She had been a principal magistrate at the Banjul Magistrate Court for some years now. I think it was Oga Jaffu, if I remember. And for reasons unexplained to us, she declined to preside over our trial. And as a result, our case was assigned to Bori Ture.
Mr. Chairman, it's 5 minutes to the first break. Perhaps maybe you want to take over from here. Commissioners may have questions.
Thank you very much. Actually, you were time conscious in that word. I was just about to intervene to remind you that we have 5 minutes. And if you finish your line of questioning at the moment of those commissioners, maybe they have some questions before we break up for 30 minutes. Yes, Anna, please.
Commissioner Anna Jones. Mr. Chongan, is it my understanding, please correct me, that the IG Alagie Kanteh left on board the ship with the former President Jawara?
Yes, correctly.
Okay, I want to refer you back to paragraph 167. I think there's a missing link as to his return, because you mentioned that both of you had to resume your trips to Banjul. So could you please shed more light as to when he returned back to Gambia? 167, please. Could you just shed more light as to when he returned back to Gambia after leaving with former President Jawara?
Microphone.
No, he returned back in 1994, just afterwards. He didn't stay long in Senegal. Then in my testimony, I did explain that we were arrested together and taken to Mile 2 on that Monday.
Just wanted it for the record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Ka, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Carr. I wanted to ask you a question yesterday. For one reason or the other, it escaped my mind. I want to take you back to when your wife saw you for the first time in 7 months. What was her reaction?
Well, it's obvious. It's obvious that she will be distraught. That you know, I was in prison, in my haggardness, my clothes, and my shabbiness. I mean, it's a very sad situation. Yeah.
Thank you. Imam Jallo, please.
Imam Usainu Jallo, Commissioner. Mr. Chongan, I know it's very difficult for you. How do you feel after you had realized that? After you had realized that some of your top officers in the forces had joined the president and left the country to nobody. What did you really feel? And right now, after so many years, what do you feel?
Well, at the time, to be brutally honest, I was very angry. But now I'm not angry, because at the time I was very angry. But now I'm not angry. I've moved on. You know, I'm happy I'm alive. I could have been dead 24 years ago, and maybe they would have forgotten me, and nobody would say the story. So I'm grateful to Allah to be here. That's more important. Whatever an individual does, you take responsibility for it.
Imam Abdurrahman Si. Man maa ngay wax ne soo gisee seen mbir mi jafe-jafe mu yàgga seen attakat yi ñoom mu ngi mel ni dañ doon seet lu nekk Yaya Jammeh moo tax atte bi yàgga bañ leen atte te loolu moom rafetut parce que nit moom su la indilalee wakam war nga seet lu ci mën a ne nga atte ko mu jeex moo taxoon jafe-jafe yi ngeen yàggee noonu waaye su fekkente noonu jaaraloon nañ ko ci yoon atte ko atte bi jeex da ngeen doon am seen ndam wala ngeen am seen jafe-jafe waaye atte bi daal xam naa ne ñoom ñi doon atte daal man dama gis ne daal ñoom lu nekk nguur gi moom lañ toppoon toppuloon seen liggéey.
Yes, that was the case, because there were two issues here. Number one, there was no case. And number two, the magistrate was afraid to dismiss the case. So they just leave it like that. But the good thing for us, going to the court also our escape, so that we can see our family. They will come to the courthouse. So there was also a little bit good thing in it, or else maybe we would just have been in prison. We would not even go out.
Commissioner Bojang.
I am Commissioner Bojang. Mr. Chongan, you said when you heard of your fellow prisoners' release, you thought otherwise that you may be the last person of reason. Why did you think so?
Well, because, as I said before, there are a number of reasons. I was one of the most senior officers. I resisted them in the coup. And Yaya Jammeh was my neighbor. We give him food, we give him everything, and he can lock me up. So I knew, you know, I'm a soldier. You know, I was prepared psychologically and mentally that I will stay very long because of what I did. So I was prepared. It was very difficult, but I knew because maybe you don't understand military because I was very senior. So I knew the junior ones will be going. That's why we stayed there until the end, until the new constitution came into force.
Bishop, please. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please.
And again, don't you think that it's because of your forced firing against them?
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I said. That's why I said the resistance. Yes. So I knew that. So I knew I was in deep trouble. It's only God can take me out.
Bishop, you have the floor, please.
Chairman, Commissioner James Odiko, Mr. Chongan, apart from the provisions that were brought in by your family members, were they allowed to bring you any change of raiment, clothing?
No, there's no change of clothing. You always wash. You just wash your trouser, you know. They did allow us some time at the beginning to bring us a little bit of clothing, but I was unlucky. When we were transferred to security wing number 1, you know, I lose. Then eventually I had my trouser. On maybe the other clothes I had, I don't know where they kept it. You know, in Africa, when they keep somebody, admired to the rats and everything. So the rats can even eat the clothes, who knows? Yeah.
You were talking about the transfer of your case from Mr. Onya, who likened you to Nelson Mandela. And that evoked something in the junta, necessitating the transfer of the case to some other magistrate. You also indicated that it was initially transferred to Principal Magistrate Ogajafo, who declined to handle the case, and it was thereafter transferred to Mr. Boriture. Does that encapsulate what you said before the break?
Yes, although I just want to clarify, magistrate comparing me to the great Mandela, I think he was being sarcastic rather than meaning it. I'm too way small for that. Okay.
It may have never been perceived or received in that regard, but nonetheless, the repercussions of his statements were there for all to see. Is that right?
Correct, Counsel.
Now, your case is before Magistrate Mr. Boriture. This was in March, according to your diary, March 28, 1996, correct? Can you tell us what happened before the magistrate Boriture when you appeared on the 28th of March, specifically referring to paragraph 177 of your statement, page 55?
Yes, we appeared before this young Gambian magistrate at the time, Boriture, and the courtroom was full to capacity with our families, friends, fellow citizens, because by now our case has captured the attention of the nation, because everybody was seeing a pattern that the junta had some interest in this case. So then the case, okay, as I said, the case captured the attention of the nation. So the High Court had already ruled on the prosecution's appeal to tender documents. The defense has objected to during Superintendent John Kunda Ceesay's evidence in chief. and the higher court upheld Onia's ruling in favor of the defense counsel. If you recall, I did explain the legal tussle they had until Onia ruled in favor of the defense, and the prosecution appealed, and that appeal was dismissed. So once again, we are here with everybody present. The prosecution called for another adjournment on the familiar refrain that its witnesses couldn't appear in court for days. Our lawyers then mounted a vehement objection to adjourn the trial. They protested that the prosecution must end its orchestrated delays and assume its burden of proof by producing witnesses to the court. And they quoted the famous dicta saying, "Justice delayed, justice denied." They quoted the old room. So in his ruling, Magistrate Toure granted the adjournment, but he gave a very firm warning to the prosecution to bring the witnesses at the next sitting. He made it clear that the case would proceed, even if the prosecution failed to do so.
At this stage, you have already been in detention for 1 year and 1 month. Is that right? I mean, excuse me, I meant to say that your trial had started 1 year and 1 month ago.
Okay, yes, you are right, for the trial, yes.
And up to this moment, only one witness was called in relation to count 11 of the charge, which had nothing to do with you.
Correct. It was for abuse of office for the former IG, yeah.
And even at this stage, all the documents the prosecution attempted to tender through this witness were rejected, and this rejection was upheld by the by the next appellate court.
Correct.
And at this stage, you're saying successive applications for adjournment had been made and granted by the previous magistrate, but this time Mr. Toure gave the warning for the final adjournment. Is that correct?
Yes.
When was the next adjourned date, according to your diary?
The next adjourned date was the 10th April, 1996.
What happened on that date?
We appeared before Magistrate Bori Toure for the second time, and as usual, the court was full to capacity. Some members of the public stood outside. There was a real anticipation for some form of action on this day. Either the prosecution would finally end the dithering and proceed with the case, or the magistrate would follow through on his warning to the prosecution when we appeared before. So the defense lawyers came fully prepared and determined. This time there was Miss Ida Drame was now representing Alagie Kanteh, Mr. Pap Chayasin Seka for ASP Diba, and Mr. Lawyer Usman Silla was representing me. After the case was called, the police prosecutor again, Mr. ASP Lamin Jobate, stood up and pleaded for another adjournment.
How was it received this time by the defense?
Well, the defense would insist that we have to proceed, and also they reminded the magistrate that the last time the case has to proceed.
Did Mr. Toure, did the defense make any application before Magistrate Toure?
Yes, the defense, without missing a bit, they made an application for the dismissal of the case.
Did the magistrate make a decision on that application?
Yes. Then Magistrate Bori Toure, I think, if I remember right, I just adjourned for a few time and then came back and made a judgment, which is in my statement. And the judgment was he acquitted and discharged us.
In your statement, specifically paragraph 180, you quoted the contents of the decision of the magistrate. Do you remember that?
Yes, I quoted it. And I have a newspaper which I kept, for which I have here.
Could you, on this occasion, produce the newspaper so that the commission can see it?
Hold on. Now, I might need some help because I don't know which one. Okay, it's here.
Yes, yes. Pass it on, please.
This was the point, huh? And this was the observer. Yeah.
Mr. Chongan,
Counsel, you may continue, please.
Could you take a look at the first newspaper in your possession? Which newspaper is that? Could you read out the headline of the article that concerned your case?
Mic, please.
Microphone.
Sorry. Yes, it reads, former Inspector General of Police and others acquitted as magistrate struck out without cause charges against them. And there's a photograph of myself and Alagie Kanteh.
What was the date of this newspaper?
The date of this newspaper was Monday, 15 April.
Let's go to the next one. What year? Thank you.
1996.
Let's go to the next newspaper.
This is the Observer, and
of which date?
Of 15 April 1996. And it also says Magistrate Court strikes out case against ex-IGP and others, again with my photograph and that of the former IG.
Mr. Chairman, at the end of his testimony, we would ask that all these documents be included in the record. You can see already how time-consuming it is to pass documents to all members of the Commission for inspection. So if we have to do that for each document or each material we need to present as evidence, we'd probably be spending 5-10 years here. So we would ask for this abridged procedure where we put them all in bulk together at the end of the session or at the end of a witness's testimony, bearing in mind, of course, that this is not a trial and that we are not bound by the ordinary rules of procedure that you would have in the courts, and that the Commission is the master of its own procedure. This is a truth-seeking mission and not a trial, so we can have the luxury to do that. And in any case, these are not materials that anyone would contest. So if you allow us, we will proceed accordingly.
Did you say 5 to 10 years will be here? If you did say that, we don't have money for that. So no, understood. Your point is understood, well taken. We may proceed accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chongan, in your statement, you provided the details of the judgment of Mr. Toure in paragraph 180. Can you read it out, please, and slowly, bearing in mind that the interpreters would have to interpret everything that you say?
I start quoting Magistrate Bori Toure's judgment. He said, the issue to be determined by this ruling is whether the application by Ms. Ida Drame for the case to be dismissed in the face of the prosecution's apparent refusal to continue should be granted.
Mr. Seka also urges the court to dismiss the case for want of prosecution, supported by Defense Counsel Mr. Silla and Ms. Drame's application. This case was previously before His Worship Onya. In the course of the trial, certain rulings were made as regard to certain documents, which the prosecution had applied to tender. Unfortunately, however, a ruling was made to the effect that they be rejected, as a result of which decision the prosecution filed an application before the Supreme Court for the ruling, His Worship Onya, to be reviewed. It is interesting to note that the charge sheet in this particular case entailed 12 counts against the 3 accused persons. It is further interesting to note that the Supreme Court has handed down its decision on the said ruling on Wednesday, the 3rd of April. This case has since been dragging on. The case, since the ruling was handed down, adjourned for 28 March 1996. It was further adjourned to the 8th of April for hearing. Hearing notices have been sent to all lawyers involved in this case and to landed ASP Jabate to the effect that the case was adjourned to today, 10 April, for hearing. Of course, Mr. Jabate knew that the major cause of delay in the pending application for the review before the Chief Justice was over. In fact, he furnished the court with a copy of the said ruling. What the court is set down for today is business, i.e. hearing this matter. There is no reason for any further delay, and in fact, Mr. Jabate, when asked to proceed, only said, I quote, "I cannot proceed, I don't have any of my witnesses here." End of quote. Of course, it is known to landed ASP Jabate that he was supposed to bring his witnesses to court today. Sufficient time has been given to him to do so. Despite the sufficiency of time, he has come without them, and he has not furnished the court with any explanation as to their absence. Adjournment as a matter of law is a matter of discretion to the court. It is not a right. However, the court, in the interest of justice of the case, would have to regard the convenience of both parties, as well as their respective counsels. The defense lawyers in this case have reiterated their willingness to continue the case. But landed ASP Jabate has emphatically refused to comply with any reasonable or justifiable explanation. Mere absence of the witnesses in this matter does not deny the court the opportunity to proceed with the case. The prosecution could have made an application to amend the charge sheet as directed by the Supreme Court. This would have pictured landed ASP Jabate as a very diligent and hard-working counsel. And that would have helped the court as well. But counsel's blank statement that he doesn't want to proceed is an insult on the dignity of the court. His behavior is contemptible. It does not conform to the norms and ethics well respected at the bar. Moreover, it has put the prosecution in this unfortunate situation of refusing to proceed with this case. This is a clear case of want of prosecution. Section 162 of the Criminal Procedure Code supports Mr. Seka's position that an adjournments are discretionary. Where any party in any case can proceed, it will be an abuse of the process of the court to adjourn merely for adjournment's sake. It is a common practice in this jurisdiction that the case be struck out where a party has been given all reasonable opportunities to proceed with its case, but refused to do so. Judicial time is precious. Mr. Jabate could have made his application for an amendment in preparation for the next sitting. His refusal to do so shows clearly that he wants to hold the court to ransom. I hereby order that the application by the Landed Council for the first accused, Ms. Ida Drame, which application has been supported by Mr. Seka and Mr. Silla, be granted. I hereby grant it, and the case is accordingly struck out without cause. Accused persons, however, to be remanded in detention at Mildwood Prison since they are security detainees. End of quote.
How did you feel when you heard this decision?
I was very elated, and I was particularly struck how brave Magistrate Toure was at that time for braving up to the junta, because he clearly knew that the case was the case would never proceed. They had no evidence. It was just a fishing expedition and an abuse of process.
Yes, proceed. You said this was a courageous decision. Why did you think so?
Well, Counsel, you've seen how the previous magistrates, they were just adjourning the case. They were just adjourning the case. And you have to capture the context then. Remember, we were in military rule. You know, he is a brave man because he would have put himself in harm's way. So I think he really had guts.
Did the junta take this decision lightly?
No, actually, when I was at the box, when he discharged us, I just shook my head and I spoke to one of my co-accused. I say, I doubt this guy will survive. And the following day, all our celebration was stunted. Magistrate Toure was dismissed.
Dismissed from what?
Well, he was a magistrate. They dismissed him. I think I have yes, I have the newspaper here. Magistrate Bori Toure sack.
What newspaper is that?
This is Observer of the 16 April 1996. I'm just giving him, and then I'll explain the chronology. One is when he was reinstated, and also we are immediately charged again. So
we would come to that.
Yeah, but I don't.
Yes, we would come to that. In the meantime, I want you to explain, if you know, how the judiciary responded to Mr. Toure's judgment. You told us that he was sacked from his job, and we have seen the newspaper. That aside, do you know if the judiciary had reacted or had taken steps to deal with Mr. Toure's decision or his judgment apart from sacking him?
Yes, because Mr. Toure in open court acquitted and discharged us. And, you know, people might argue legally whether it's right or it's not right, but afterwards the bench and the bar were outraged. And at that time, it was that infamous justice who was the Chief Justice, Al-Ghali. You remember Al-Ghali Commission? I think, yeah, Al-Ghali was the Chief Justice. So, because I know this, because lawyer Usman Silla at the time told me that this is in open court. But afterwards, it was changed to that it was struck out. And then Magistrate Bori Toure is reinstated again. But he...
What was changed?
Well, the judgment was changed from acquit and discharge to struck out, to just what I read. Yeah.
So you are telling us that in open court you are acquitted and discharged?
Yes.
And later on, that judgment was changed and the disposition was that the case was struck out.
Correct.
Do you know how that was received by the Bar Association and other people interested in the law?
Well, at the time, it was lawyer Usman Silla who explained. He was very angry that you cannot change a judgment that was done in open court. The right procedure, even if the magistrate was err in law, they should have appealed the judgment so that it could be corrected properly.
What was the reaction or the response to Mr. Toure's dismissal?
There was outrage from the lawyers, both the private practice and the bench. There was outrage about this at the time.
Do you know how that outrage or how the issue of Mr. Toure's dismissal was subsequently handled?
Yes, as I just explained, that this judgment was changed from acquitted and discharged to it was struck out. And then Magistrate Toure was reinstated, but he was moved from Banjul Magistrate Court to Mansakonko Magistrates Court.
Do you have a newspaper that says anything about his reinstatement?
Yes, there is a newspaper here where I did give it to the man. Yeah, this was one where he was reinstated, dated on the Thursday, the 25th of April.
Which newspaper are you referring to?
The Observer of 25th April 1996.
Could you produce that to the Commission? As the Commissioners take a look at this document, perhaps I may ask a few questions concerning lawyer Usman Silla. Do you know whether he still practices law in this country?
Well, everybody knows what happened to lawyer Silla. He was shot by the junta. He nearly died. He was taken to Dakar for medical treatment, and he subsequently went to exile for a long time. And I don't think he's practicing now, because obviously that must have been a very traumatic experience. And he was shot with a bullet, I think he was very lucky in the head. He was very lucky to be alive.
Do you by any chance recall when this event happened?
I cannot recall it off my head, but because I think when it happened, I had already gone to exile, I think.
And at this stage, Gambia must have moved from military junta to constitutional civilian rule.
Well, yeah, so-called constitutional. As far as I'm concerned, the Gambia never moved from a junta. I know you said there's a constitution, yeah, but they were supposedly on the constitutional rule.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chongan. We would now move on to what happened to your case subsequently. Remember, you have told us that you were acquitted and discharged of those charges that were before the magistrate, but you were to go back into detention because you were security detainees. What happened after that?
Well, no surprise. We were recharged again. And I think maybe I should have said the whole issue of acquit and discharge, obviously in law, is autre for acquit, autre for convict. You cannot bring the person back to be charged. But obviously when they tampered with the judgment, changing it from acquit and discharge to struck out, then procedurally you can be charged. So we have been recharged now again on the 23rd of April. And I have the newspaper here 23rd April 1996, we are recharged again.
Could you tell us which newspaper this was?
This was the Observer of 23rd April 1996.
Could you kindly read out the headline?
It says, former IGP and 2 others recharged just a few days after being acquitted by Boriture. Did you see the language?
Who were the two others that are referred to in the newspaper?
Myself, Mr. Ebrima Chongan, and ASP Kebba Ceesay.
Thank you very much. You would want to produce that to the Commission? Mr. Chairman, a commissioner wants to ask a question.
Mr. Chongan, I believe the changing of the decision from acquittal and discharging to stroke out was a calculated move, so as to give window where after a few hours or so you can be brought back again, because of the same manipulation that has been going on, dragging the case and keeping you in custody for 2.5 years. That's my conviction. I'm not sure whether I'm right.
You are absolutely right. That was why the Chief Justice had to make sure that if you look at the newspaper you have there, it says acquitted. That's why Al-Ghali manipulated the judgment so that they can give chance to the junta. You know, there was no rule of law anymore. Whatever the junta wanted, it happened.
Sorry, just a reminder to the commissioners to please announce your name. We need to be transcribing all of these things, and if the names are not announced, it might create confusion. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Secretary. I thought after announcing the name once, twice, do we have to do it every time?
Yes, please. You need to announce your name every time you talk for the transcribers.
Okay.
Council, you may proceed, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chongan, so on 23rd April 1996, you were recharged before a magistrate. Which magistrate was it this time?
This time we appeared before another Gambian magistrate called Yukasi Dabo, our 4th magistrate now for this case. And as expected, the same charges were reinstated. All three of us pleaded not guilty. And as usual, the prosecution applied for adjournment, and without any surprise, Magistrate Dabo swiftly granted the adjournment, and it was clear now that this is nothing short of our conviction would get us out of this.
You said this was your 4th magistrate. So let's get it clear. The first was Onya, 2nd Ogajafo, then 3rd Boriture, and then 4th Yukase Dabo, correct?
Correct.
On this occasion that you appeared before Mr. Yukase Dabo, did the prosecution offer any reasons for the adjournment short?
No adjournment offered. But I think by this time, the new magistrate has got the signal. So he just granted the adjournment.
What happened to ASP Kebba Ceesay subsequently?
Yes, ASP Kebba Ceesay, subsequently he was sick and he was taken to the hospital. He was diagnosed that with diabetes, and I'm quite sure it was the food condition in the prison. That is my opinion. And the prosecution team now has become very desperate, given the mounting pressure they were under to prove their case. So we became very suspicious when they came to Mile 2 prison and drove one of our colleagues, Chief Superintendent Sirif Mbai, to police headquarters. You know.
Do you know why he was taken there?
Well, we were suspicious now. They wanted to use him to testify before Alagie Kanteh. There was some misunderstanding before.
To testify before or against?
To testify against Alagie Kanteh. That's what they wanted. But to Superintendent Sirif Mbai's credit, when he came back, he told us, and he categorically refused to cooperate.
To cooperate with who?
With Jawate and Fodebari.
Up to this stage, were you receiving visits from members of your family?
Yes, time to time. It depends on the tension, you know, time to time.
At this stage, 1996, were there, earlier on in your testimony, you mentioned that some politicians were also brought to Mile 2. Do you recall what happened to them?
Yes, I can remember in 12 July 1996, Lamin Saho, I think they call him Lamin Nafa Saho. He was a former minister of tourism. He was detained and brought to our wing, security wing number 4.
You mentioned O.J. Jallo the other day, yesterday. Did anything happen to him, as far as you know?
We did not see them, but I think there was a time they brought them at the security wing number 6, at the remand wing, you know, and we heard about it. Yeah.
You told us earlier that the leader of the junta, Yaya Jammeh, was your neighbor. She used to come and eat from your house. Even after the coup, your wife would not believe that there was a coup because she said that if there was a coup, Yaya Jammeh would have told me. And do you know whether your wife had subsequently met Jammeh or seen Jammeh?
Yes, I can't remember when, but I think, yes. My wife, there was a time my wife went to Royal Victoria Hospital, and Jammeh was there on an unannounced visit, and he was coming in one corridor, and he saw my wife, and then he just turned and disappeared. But to his credit, he sent the ADC, who was Bajinka, I think, at the time, to call my wife to find out what happened, why is she at the airport, at the hospital, and my wife categorically said, well, you know what happened,
In June of 1996, you were still at Mile 2 prison, correct?
Yes.
Do you know an officer called Bainyas Ba?
Yes, I know Bainyas Ba. He was one of our officers responsible for one of the units, and I knew him very well. And there was a time when the changes happened, when they were taking the statements of the detainees. By that time, I was in security wing number 1. He came there asking for me, saying they're going to charge me treason, etc. So when they told me that, I was quite angry. But he was also subsequently detained at the Mile 2 prison in the remand wing. And he wrote me a very remorseful letter. Unfortunately, I lost the letter, but I had it at some point to ask for forgiveness, to ask for pardon. Yes.
Pardon for what? Forgiveness for what?
Well, when things have changed, because this was an officer, I think I even sent him to England to do some course and came back. But when things change, you know, this is the new dispensation. Now he was trying to prove to his new political masters that, you know, because some people just decided anybody who is more against Chongan, you know, then you will be in the good books of Jammeh. So he came to the prison asking for me, you know, that they will charge me, they will do this. So when I came, the guys told me that. I said, okay, fine. Then afterwards he was detained, and that's why he wrote me the letter.
Do you forgive him?
Yes, I forgive him.
And your trial continued, obviously. So tell us what happened on 17th June 1996. I'm referring specifically at paragraph 187 of your statement, page 59.
Yes, on this day, 17th June, our trial continued on a fortnightly basis, sort of. And each time we appear for a hearing, the same procedure would happen. I mean, the prosecution would apply for adjournment, the magistrate will note it through, duly comply, and then we go back to mile 2.
What do you mean by the magistrate nodding duly comply?
No, I mean the prosecution will come and apply for adjournment, and then the magistrate will grant them the adjournment. We are returned. I even remember there was an occasion the prosecution did not even turn up, and we still had an adjournment.
And during this period, these routine requests for adjournment and routine granting of the application for adjournment, did your counsel make a request for the case to be dropped?
Yeah, whenever they ask for adjournment, the counsel will naturally say we need to proceed, but the prosecution will say we are not ready. So, I mean, there's so much you can do.
So by this time, June 17, 1996, you would have been in detention for almost 23 months, and your trial would have been for almost 19 months.
Yes.
No single witness has been had in your case except for Mr. Ceesay.
Yes, and also the documents he wanted to tender were dismissed, was not accepted, and the prosecution appealed to the High Court.
And as at this time, no single witness was had in the case against you?
Yes, never. No witness ever came.
And you were detained together. Well, your case was against 3 individuals, ASP Diba and Pa Sala Jagne. What, if anything, happened to ASP Diba afterwards? You earlier testified that he was sick with diabetes. You may look at paragraph 188 of your statement if you need to.
Yes, I think ASP Kebba Diba wasn't giving any food since the previous day when he returned from the hospital. You know, Kebba Diba, when this diabetes thing, he was admitted to the hospital. And then I think there was an incident there, I can't remember. But so ASP Kebba Diba hadn't been giving any food since the previous day, because now he would need to have special dietary requirement because of the diabetes when he returned from the hospital. So we protested that we weren't going inside ourselves until he was provided with the food required. Now another prison officer, he was not very friendly, promised us that he was going to bring food for Diba. but he instead brought reinforcement of heavily armed soldiers to threaten us. So, I mean, these soldiers were our junior. We were not afraid of them. So we clearly explained to the soldiers our demand for ASP Kebba Ceesay to be provided food he could eat as a diabetic. To Ndau's disappointment, the soldiers countenanced the demand, the soldiers countered the demand and agreed to make sure that food was brought to Kebba Ceesay.
And do you know whether subsequently the dietary requirements of Kebba Ceesay were being met by the prison?
I'm not sure whether they have been met, but at least he will have food, because he will be allowed food now to come from his family to bring it to him.
But did he still remain at the security wing number 4 with you guys?
Yes, he was there at security wing number 4 with us.
You mentioned quite a number of guards who are responsible for your group. Did they remain the same throughout your detention at security wing number 4?
No. After that brief protest we did, 28th of June 1996, the guards at the security wing were replaced. Our suspicion was that the reshuffling was occasioned by our little consensus protest on behalf of ASP Kebba Ceesay. A new assistant prison officer, Farmer Akoli, was now assigned to our wing. Like a new broom, you have to understand prison. You know, you fight incrementally to have little, it's not even privileges, to have relaxation. And if there's a little turbulence, you go back to square one. So, like a new broom, hoping to sweep clean, and certainly empowered by hardline instructions from the junta, he immediately started reversing all the progress we had achieved to alleviate our poor detention conditions. He reintroduced searching, close monitoring of our activities. We were veterans and knew all the secrets of the prison establishment. To his chagrin, we fought back. The back and forth created tense animosity between us and the prison establishment. So we soon lodged a complaint to the Commissioner of Prison about the ill treatment we were receiving from some prison officers, primarily this Farmer Akoli. So the Commissioner removed Koli from our wing, and he was replaced with Sergeant Bakari Bojang. Detainees in different security wings now were not allowed to mingle. You know, we have stayed very long in the prison until, if we are allowed, we are out on breaks, we can mingle with even the people in security wing number 1. But now this has been reversed, and so now the detainees in different security wings were not allowed. Farmer Koli introduced that. So detained in security were not allowed to mingle. But when another senior officer came, who was called Balajo, he was a good man, was transferred to take charge of both security wing number 1 and ours. Then he lifted that restriction.
Do you know the first name of Balajo?
Balajo, they used to call him APO Balajo at the time. Yeah, I'm quite sure if you inquire at the prison, they would know him.
Let me take you to 25th July 1996.
Yes.
26 July 1996. This would have been the 2nd anniversary of your detention, correct?
Correct. This was the second anniversary of our detention, and you know, we would not celebrate, obviously, a milestone of being second year in prison. And you know, the junta and its minions have already made plans for us by way of appearing in court in our never-ending trial. So we made our symbolic appearance again before Magistrate Yukasi Dabo.
Why do you call it symbolic appearance?
Well, I mean, it's a foregone conclusion. We will just go, and then prosecution will apply for adjournment, and then it's granted, and we go back. Even though there's a good side effect to it, at least we will be able to see our relatives.
In paragraph 192 of your statement, you described it as such. That is the second part of paragraph 192, and I would read it, quote, "The prosecutor rendered his ritualistic application for an adjournment, and the magistrate religiously accepted it. Poor Mr. Dabo, I almost felt pity for him at the bench. The embarrassing expression on his countenance betrayed his inner discomfort for playing along with the prosecution against all ethics and norms of case law. The junta had emasculated the judiciary of its independence and negated its integrity in an all-out determination to stultify every branch and aspect of government to their whims," unquote. Did that capture what you were saying at the time when you appeared before Magistrate Dabo?
Yes, because I really pitied him. You know, by this time, you know, the junta are starting to permeate every branch of government. It's just not the judiciary. The security force is everywhere. And I agree with that summation. I wrote it, and I stand by it.
It's quite damning, isn't it?
Indeed.
Was it that bad, Mr. Chongan?
Well, Counsel, I mean, can you imagine a case going on for more than 1.5 years? Almost every year they're adjourning. Every 2 weeks they're adjourning. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I said, can you imagine a case for more than a year? Every time they're adjourning, this case was struck out. I mean, is that justice? Justice delayed is justice denied. I think, Counsel, you know this more than me.
Mr. Chongan, Counsel doesn't answer questions. But thank you very much for that answer. I mean, I asked those questions simply because I wanted the record to capture the seriousness of the problem that we were dealing with. One of our responsibilities is to identify how we got to where we were in December of 2016. These are the little baby steps that were occurring which led us to that place. So we need to identify them. But thank you very much for your answers, and thanks also for accommodating me when I ask questions that would elicit some obvious answers. Not that I don't know the answers, but the record must reflect the answers. My knowledge of them and keeping them in my head would not necessarily put them on the record. So I have to ask those questions, silly as they may appear sometimes, but they would elicit the information that is needed for the record. But thank you for indulging us, Mr. Chongan.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Kanteh, you asked the name of the prison warden or prison officer. It's Kitabu Balajo. Maybe the records will want to have it. Kitabu Balajo.
Thank you for that indication. You may continue, Council. Oh, sorry. Yes, Mustafa Carr, Commissioner Carr.
Commissioner Carr, I have a question. You maintained that Dr. Lamin Saho was brought in to the same security wing you were in, and that was the second time a civilian was brought to that wing. Was there any difference between the treatment that civilians like him received and you?
Not that much. He was able to get his food, but I think he must have got a medical condition. So he was able to get food from home every day. And I think it's good you even ask this question. And we are all crashing. Sometimes we go and crash for the crumbs, you know. Yes.
Council, you may continue, please.
Thank you. Mr. Chongan, you continued your regular journey to the court for Mr. Magistrate, Mr. Kebba Ceesay. So tell us what happened 27 August 1996.
Yeah, 27 August 1996, we appeared once again before Magistrate Kebba Ceesay. Some of my family members in Senegal traveled down to see me at this hearing, and other family members in the country who hadn't had the opportunity to attend previous hearings also came. They were all happy to see me, and I was holding up in remarkable spirit.
Did any senior officials attend that hearing?
Yes, this day it was unusual. This case, the notorious ASP Lamin Jabate did not come up. This time the Director of Public Prosecutions showed up for the prosecution.
I noticed you called Mr. Jabate notorious. What was he notorious for at this time?
Well, he was a nightmare to us. You know that. Sorry, Council, you know, as far as it's my belief that he did not treat us fairly.
And this time round, which senior official appeared?
The Director of Public Prosecution showed up for the prosecution, and we thought that the Director was either going to file a motion of nolle prosequi, annulment of the prosecution, or add more charges to the charge sheet. But when neither of those happened, we became a bit concerned about the change of prosecutors at this stage in the trial. Well, not much happened in this hearing as well.
Did the new prosecutor, that is the DPP, did he proceed with the case?
No, he didn't proceed. He just made an application for adjournment, and as expected, the magistrate upheld the application, and we were driven back to mile 2. But that day I received 2 books from my classmate, Mr. Ibu Gibbs, who is in Canada. He was my former classmate in Gambia High School, and I was really touched by it that friends like him went out of their way to send me gifts in prison without fear of what the ruling council might do to them. Nothing was more precious in prison than reading materials, because in prison you don't have a big space, but you have a lot of time. So reading with a book, it's quite stimulating.
Were books readily available?
Yes, in the latter end, when we were in security wing number 4, yes, in the latter end.
How about when you were in security wing number 1?
No, there was no books available. We would just read the cover of the Dettol soap, to read the writings there, to know, so that just to fill our mind.
During that time, you had the privilege of receiving 2 books. In your earlier testimony, you said you received 1 book from your sister and another, The Economist. Could you clarify that?
No. We had the Bible, and then afterwards the Quran. That was after we pleaded with Thomas Jajo. So he gave us a Bible, and all of us are Muslim. But anyway, we read it, and I was really struck by the story of Job in the Bible.
Tell us about it.
Well, I think the pastor will know it more than me. So
the pastor is not testifying, Mr.
Yeah,
Chongan.
because I think Job was a guy who had everything, and then he lost everything. And I was here, you know, in the doldrums, and it gave me some hope, you know, that these things, they do happen in life. It was very humbling. And then after we have the Quran and started learning to read the Quran until we became very conversant with the Quran.
The story of Job resonated with your situation. That's what you're telling us.
I didn't say that. I just said that it was very humbling.
Did the prison have a library?
I don't know. I can't remember, to be honest. They might, but I don't know. I can't remember.
But if it did, you never had access to books from it?
Yes. After when detention subsidized, we started receiving books, people sending us books, and we are reading. Yeah.
In your earlier testimony, okay, after receiving the Bible, first the Bible, and then the Holy Quran, you were lucky to receive a book. You received the Economist newspaper, that is the story of Gilas. Tell us about that.
No, in prison, I received the book of, there was a soldier called Madikefal. You know, the soldiers would escort Thomas to our private security wing. And I remember one day he just surreptitiously dropped a book. And the book was about Islamic things. And then I picked it, I read it, and then I shouted to Muhammad Betty, it was his Captain Cham, that, oh, we've got a book, and it's about Islamic stuff and so on. So when I read and we exchange.
Thank you very much for that. So now, as at 27th of August, 1996, the DPP took over the case from ASP Jobate. That's what you said, right?
Yeah, for that day.
Was it just for that day or for the continuation of the process?
No, I think it was for that day because I can't remember him turning up again.
You told us that while in detention, other people were brought, such as Harry Valentine and Usman Baji. Do you recall what happened to those people?
On the 28th of October 1996, more detainees were released.
Could you tell us their names, please, those you can remember?
Okay. We woke up the morning, hold on. Yeah, out of the 18 remaining detainees in our wing, 11 were named for immediate release. This was Captain Mamad Cham, my good friend, Sirif Gomez, were on the list. The free detainees also included Captain Marong, if you remember, who I said advised the junta members not to summarily execute people in the Alagie November 11 thing. ASP Harry Valentine, Lieutenant Usman Baji, the Baji you mentioned earlier on, who would later become a minister, and Corporal Lama Bari. By this time, I was very, very close to Sirif. He was my buddy. You know, we were the small rebels in the prison. So, you know, he shed tears when he was going out, realizing that because that I was not part of the list. And now, only 4 of us are remaining in the security wing, which was full. Now, only 4 of us were remaining. Pastor Alagie Kanteh, ASP Kebba Ceesay, Captain Ebrima Kambi, and Corporal Alagie Kanteh. So now it's only the 4 of us remaining on the whole of security wing number 4.
At this stage, what has happened to the case of Ebrima Kambi. He was to be court-martialed together with Captain Major Malik Njai. What happened to their case?
No, the court-martial was dropped, like Malik Njai and others, but he was still there, detained illegally.
In the meantime, Major Njai was released as part of those released for Tobaski.
Yes, Major Njai and Couple Mbalo Seidi Khan, yeah.
So Kambi was still in detention at this time, with no pending charge?
Correct.
Here, the witness, Mr. Chongan, is recounting his encounter with one of Jammeh's right-hand men, Mr. Baba Job. According to Mr. Chongan, when he was first released out of detention, which was about 2 years later, he met Baba Job in town, and Baba Job appealed to him to reconcile with Jammeh, but he dismisses that suggestion, insisting that he was not interested in any kind of reconciliation with Jammeh, and that was the end of it. In other words, Chongan had already made up his mind that he would not serve a government that humiliated him, that deprived him of his rights as a dignified person and the rights of many others in similar situations. Here again is Chongan.
Before we left for that short break, you talked about having met Mr. Baba Job, who advised you to reconcile with Jammeh. And you were telling us what eventually happened to Mr. Baba Job. Could you say that again, please?
Well, Mr. Baba Job would eventually fall out with Jammeh, and he would be tried and sentenced to prison. And I think he died just before he was supposed to be released.
Mr. Chongan, I asked you a question which you haven't really answered fully. You said prison conditions were horrible. You eventually would be released after 30 months of detention. Now you are back to your family, enjoying the basic necessities of life, which in Mile 2 prison would sound very much like utter luxury. How did it feel?
Well, I wouldn't say enjoying luxury, because when I came out, I am here, I am jobless. When I'm out of prison, obviously, but I am jobless. I don't have a work. All my life, I work in my life. Now, I don't even have money to buy a packet of cigarettes. But also, I'm grateful because at least I've reunited with my family, and my little daughter is starting to recognize me, to accept that I'm her dad. And my court case also continued to drag, as I indicated earlier on. And
did you develop any condition as a result of your incarceration?
Yes, I developed, I had a very serious back pain. Waist pain. If you ask anybody who comes from Mile 2 after a prolonged period, they will tell you that you will have a back pain for a long time, because we are basically lying down on a plank, a wooden plank, and it's not more than this. It's long, but it's just about the size of your body. So that hardness, you only have one blanket. That hardness, I did have severe pains. It took months, years before, that pain finally disappeared. When I went to the UK, I had further medical treatment.
How about your ability to sleep?
Yes, initially I had some very difficult to sleep, even at night, even if the doors, and then I had a phobia for keys, because, if I, in the prison, all these prison officers, they all had this bunch, this key bunch.
If you were to diagnose the condition you were in after you were released from prison, how would you call, or what would you call your condition?
Well, it was much better, because now I'm living in my family home, staying at my father's house. Now I don't have anywhere to live. So it was, in terms of perspective, comparing it to the prison, obviously there is marked improvement. I'm back home. And also, I had another problem, because when I was arrested, all my belongings, somewhere with my in-laws, somewhere with my relatives,
In page 63 of your statement, paragraph 200, you had this to say. I will read it out.
Okay, good.
And then I'll ask you follow-on questions. And here you said as follows: I left mile 2, but mile 2 hadn't still left me. An airy paranoia haunted every dark room or place. I diagnosed myself with post-detention stress disorder. The raw experience of the place lurked in my wake like a hideous shadow I wouldn't cast away or shake off. Does that capture how you felt after leaving prison?
Yes, and then you didn't read the rest. Yes, I didn't just turn coward. I was sure of that. I said that. Yes.
I was going to come to that.
Okay, sorry, I didn't promise.
Mr. Chongan, yeah. But this is something that was real, isn't it?
Very real indeed.
You went on to say that I just didn't turn coward. I was sure of that. I guess that's the way the human mind would work after such an ordeal. Should I seek professional help? But where in the country? I wondered. Does that capture how you felt at the time?
Very well.
Would you say that such would be the situation of many people who have had or experienced prolonged detention at mile 2?
Yes, and I was one of the lucky people. At least I live in a fairly decent house. Because you will have post-traumatic disorder. It will affect you. It will take time to shake it up. In my early days in the UK, I used to go to the doctor and he tells me there's nothing wrong with you, you are just depressed.
What happened to your case after your release? You told the court you continued to report to the court. What happened to the case?
Yes, the case continued to go, and it was still with the magistrate Yukasi Dabo. So we went, and we were released on 3rd of February. There were a couple of the same thing. We go and they adjourn, we go and then adjourn, until we go to 24th April 1997. When I went with my dad on that day to the court, and then they told me that the government has filed in a nolle prosequi. And I told them, please give my dad his documents. But this was obviously a foregone conclusion, because by that time, Jammeh has appointed Press Jagne as a commissioner of Western Division, or governor they call it now. So, I mean, there is no way they could prosecute me anymore. So.
And this was a time also when the new constitution was already in force, right?
Yes, exactly.
And what did you do after the prosecution was terminated?
Well, once it was terminated, if you recall, I did mention that I had a meeting, family meeting with my wife and my dad about my decision to go to exile. So once the court was finished, I think it was finished on a Monday or so, by the Wednesday I went to Senegal and gone to exile.
Mr. Chongan, here you are. You believe you were unfairly charged with crimes. You believe you were unlawfully detained. But now all these things are behind you. You have been, well, the charges have been withdrawn, or a nolle has been entered. You are no longer in detention. Why did you think you needed to go on exile?
If you read, the paragraphs you read before had succinctly captured it. I had no future in this country. My career has been destroyed, and I would never serve under a Yaya Jammeh government, under no whatever circumstances. And I was very lucky. I had a dad who had a lot of experience, who was a soldier. I mean, he sat me down one day with my wife and everybody, and he told me, my friend, you have to know that you are nobody. You are not a colonel anymore. No, you are nobody. That has to sink in with you. But one thing you are lucky is you are a young man. You can go and rebuild your life. So I had to go and further education, to retrain, to have another skill.
Did you feel safe in this country?
No, I didn't feel safe, because I can vividly remember my dad telling me, you are very stubborn. If you stay here, even if they don't arrest you, they can do to you like what they did to Kebba Ceesay. So he told me, you just, even those days, my dad would insist, you cannot go out. I have to be escorted by my wife everywhere I go. Because also, you know, I was always speaking my mind.
You mentioned that your dad said you could be dealt with like Kebba Ceesay. Can you expatiate on that a little bit? What happened to Kebba Ceesay?
Well, I was in prison, but it's an open secret that Kebba Ceesay died under very mysterious circumstances.
And what kind of message do those circumstances convey to you?
Fear. You either have to toe the line, or you can't fit in this country. You have to go. And I always say, I had the privilege or the opportunity of knowing Jammeh very well, so I knew that I cannot be in this country.
Who was Mr. Kebba Ceesay?
Well, Kebba Ceesay was a finance minister in the junta.
And he died in mysterious circumstances, you say, correct?
Yes, that's an open secret. Everybody knows I've heard about it.
You were interdicted from the services of the police, and you said you had a letter to that effect. Have you found the letter?
Yes, I have got the letter here.
Would you produce it to the commission? Were you eventually reinstated in the service? The answer is an obvious no, but I want you to give you the opportunity to say what happened at the end of the day, since you were merely interdicted as at the time you were released.
No, I was not reinstated. I lost the letter, but afterwards they also sent me another letter that I was dismissed with immediate effect, just a one line.
Thank you very much. For the period of your interdiction, were you receiving the half salary that you were entitled to?
No, it went 1 or 2 months and they cut it off.
Did they give you a reason for cutting it off?
There was no reason, as far as I'm aware.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chongan, for answering my questions. I now want to give you an opportunity to say what you think to the commissioners. Here you are, you had suffered what you call violations of your rights as a Gambian. Before I come to asking you the last few questions that I have, I would want to give you the opportunity to say something to the nation, to the commissioners. What can we learn from what has happened to you and to people like you? You have the forum, the opportunity as a victim to speak to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Commissioners. And thank you, the staff of the TRRC, for allowing me to explain the human rights abuses and victimization I suffered under the former regime. I am happy to wear the badge of honor to have been tortured, abused, victimized for defending the constitution of my motherland, the Gambia. I remain ready to put my life on the line for my homeland and let justice guide our actions. I hope by this narration, the government and the Gambian people will learn some lessons that can help us to avoid committing the same mistakes from the past. I go through my ordeal not to solicit pity from my fellow citizens, but to show Gambians the callous nature of the Yaya Jammeh regime and how sticking to the truth and one's principle will eventually pay off. One thing I am respectfully submitting to the Commission, I request the government to retire me honorably. I have no interest in putting off uniform anymore, but I am requesting that I should be retired honorably and paid my dues, because most of my colleagues who abdicated their responsibility and followed illegality, they are being paid their dues, rightfully, their gratuities and their pension. That is my sweat. I work for it. I would not compromise on that. Now, I hope this narration will help the government to see the mistakes committed in the Fourth Republic that led us to what is apparent to everybody. We have to be honest and have an honest discussion to know what type of citizens do we have, what type of Gambian do we want to have. I will not mince my words. We should fight tribalism, nepotism, corruption, and mediocrity. You fight tribalism with excellence, with equality of opportunity, and a transparent way of recruitment and promotion within the armed and security forces of the Gambia. We should hold people accountable and not encourage impunity in our society. We cannot continue to reward people who abdicated their responsibilities, condone and join illegality. What message are we sending to our children, to the young officers, men and women of our armed and security forces? If we do not address institutional reforms. We need to reform our institutions to make them Republican. The civil service, particularly the armed and security forces, they have to be Republican, free from political interference. They should be loyal to our country. We have to do that. Our Senegalese neighbors, who are our cousins, you see they have a professional army. They never had a coup d'etat. Why? Because they have a professional and a strong army. Armies and police, there are rules and regulation. You don't just wake up, you promote somebody from sergeant to captain, and tomorrow you say you make him a colonel or a general. That doesn't happen. It only happens in a banana republic. So I think we need to reform our institutions, and there should be transparency. There should be proper exams so that people are recruited based on merit and they are promoted. In the military and the armed forces where I come from, carrying a rank is one thing. You have to earn it. If you become a colonel and the sergeant or the lieutenant has more experience, more educated than you, it wouldn't work. And I'm a Gambian patriot. I love my country. But I'm proud. I want us. We have Gambians who are able to help. We need to heal and come together as a nation. I am not angry about what happened. Indeed, I am proud I took the stand I took. And my mother is Mbake, is from the Mbake family. Saint Touba is my great-grandfather. When he came back from exile after 7 years or so, he forgave everybody. I have forgiven everybody who has wronged me. I don't have any rancor or anything. I have moved on. I have educated myself. I have a job, and I'm moving on with my life. But I think it was important to explain what happened so that tomorrow we don't ask, the TRRC has said, never again, so that it should never, ever happen. But that will only happen if we are truthful to ourselves. We cannot continue to promote hypocrisy. Even our religions don't allow it.
On that note, Mr. Chongan, I say thank you, and I have no further questions for you. And if the commissioners would ask questions, I give them that opportunity, and thereafter we would put in as we would add onto the information that is available to the commission the documents that are in your possession. We would put them in as exhibits, bearing in mind that still this is not a trial. We're just calling them exhibits because perhaps that would just capture their essence, but they are not exhibits as you would have them in court. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma Counsel, for an excellent exchange with our very first witness in the public hearings here.
This is the end of Chongan's marathon testimony. As mentioned earlier, Chongan, because of his bravery in July 1994 for attempting to stop the coupists from overthrowing the democratically elected government of Sir Dawda Jawara, the TRRC recognized his bravery and accorded him the opportunity to be the first witness to testify before the commission. For this matter, Chongan would spend 2 days giving a very long testimony as the man who used to be head of operation at police